Contemporary Avant Garde, Liberatory Resistance. In an introduction to The Untutored Eye, Stan Brakhage explains it as if an unconventional and filmic encounter with our own perceptions. He says, imagine a world alive with incomprehensible objects, and shimmering with an endless variety of movement and innumerable gradations of color. Historical avant-garde periods depict an exploration of technologies. It captures a spontaneous and private portrait of the artists themselves, and the world and their contradictions and struggles. Programmed by Vancouver International Film Festival, Melt's One is a memory machine that celebrates liberatory practices through a multifaceted portrait of global citizens. These selected experimental films and videos capture a contrasting experience of resistance, race, and sexuality, and together constitutes a public memory that is global, yet also invisible to the dominant culture and mass media. I see them as personal testimonies and liberatory practices in search of identity in postmodern societies. The White Elephant, Sharuk Harp.
I never told anyone that I knew that Sammy was planning to throw that Molotov. I actually never really believed him. I thought he was just kidding. He was just a kid.
The film uses low-quality footages archived from the internet, which were videos taken by Israeli soldiers from the occupied period of the Oslo Accords in Palestine. Harp also uses loop printing, or glitching effect, revealing the cinematic process by drawing attention to its materiality and structuralist aesthetics. The stories told are isolated, narrated over the imageries given no explanation. It takes the audience outside of their context.
And your Fatah guys? Your Fatah guys were the first people who signed this stupid Oslo agreement. Just so Arafat can fly his helicopter from Gaza to Ramallah. And I know you won't approve of this, but I'm going out with Nasser now. Since you're dead, I no longer care what you think.
It's a play with what Ken Jacobs considers a reinterpretation of what it is and what it can be. It explores how archived images are seen by the public then and now. Lost Head and the Bird, Sohrab Pura. Besides a long and subtle series of flicker and glitch effects, Hura exposes his audience to a large amount of archived web imageries, presented next to each other. Flickering triggers the mind and reminds it of its unconscious movements that it continues alongside the stimulations on screen. These dramatic elements compose a snapshot of the mass. It's an analysis of the emotional impact of sexual, religious, and political violence in India. Julio Iglesias' House, Natalia Marin. Julio Iglesias' House is a structural piece, like Munira's Loss, now in my script. There is a clash of textual details and the imagery impacts.
This is Julio Iglesias' house, the one in Miami.
The centering of scripts on top of a blank space in long duration and the continuous flow of an animated model arguably stimulates viewing pleasure. Yet it could also be unsettling with the amount of space given in silence. The delayed movements on screen creates an intimate experience, comparing to the mainstream cinema that are constantly filled with spectacles. LHB, Charlotte Proger. Through skips and leaps across space, the film reveals the temporality, a time that is conceptualized. Proger shoots at multiple locations, cuts the frames and assembles the imageries together, and creates a non-linear space that allows elements to be in dialogue with each other.
Rather than depicting landscape generically, I try to foreground subjectivity, like in the form of personal voiceover, to explore landscapes as the distinct individual locations that they are. There's an encroachment on queer spaces, which is in part due to the commodification of a queer aesthetic in fashion, music, and the art worlds. So by lifting those forms or aesthetics, there's an emptying out of the politics that was originally so important.
Programming involves consciousness around the aim, subject, and context. Films from this collection are experimentations driven from crisis or conflict, or periods of trauma. It's an attempt to explore the identity of the filmmaker's own self in the surrounding. A quote from Bell Hooks, in theory as liberatory practice goes, "I came to theory because I was hurting. The pain within me was so intense that I could not go on living. I came to theory desperate, wanting to comprehend, to grasp what was happening around and within me. Most importantly, I wanted to make the hurt go away. I saw in theory, then a location for healing." I'm Karina Shu. Thank you for watching.